And we're live. Hi, Bible Geeks. Ryan Schumacher here again. We're here for week 2 of our series on the Incarnation, trying to understand the doctrine of the Incarnation. While my kids are making noise in the background. We're trying to understand the doctrine of the Incarnation here as we lead up to Christmas and understand really what it is that we're celebrating and what the theological distinctives are of Christianity and help us know why we believe what we believe and what implications it has. So this week, last week we talked about why we believe in the Incarnation. There's the biblical evidence for that. Supplemental video, then we talked about some confusions about the Incarnation, some things in the text where people might say, well, is the Incarnation really true? Some places where you could end up in some kind of theological argument, and how to respond to that. Today I wanted to go through something I found really fascinating. I've only discovered this in the past year. And this is the idea of the two powers in heaven doctrine found in the Old Testament. So essentially I'm calling this the Incarnation in the Old Testament. It's a little bit of a weird thing to think of, right? We think of the Incarnation being about Jesus. Jesus was not in the Old Testament. So therefore, how can there be the Incarnation in the Old Testament? And the idea in Jewish theology of there being two powers in heaven, you can see, even in the photo that we have here, the photograph, as if somebody was there. The drawing that we have here, the Shekinah glory and the Ark of the Covenant in the background, and then the angel coming and putting the coals on Isaiah's lips, the idea of multiple powers in heaven. So I wanted to talk about what this theology is that we can find in the Old Testament and how it connects to the New Testament and finds its fulfillment in Jesus. So before I get going, I do have to say that pretty much everything here, the credit goes to the work of Dr. Michael Heiser. In the way that I came across it was in his book, The Unseen Realm, and as well as some online lectures. I believe this was the topic of his dissertation, which I claim I have not read. And if you want more on this, if you want to see a more scholarly approach to it, I wouldn't probably say better approach to it, you could find his content. But I'm going to try and do a summary of that here. I highly recommend this book, and I'm contemplating doing a whole series going through this book as well. I will say, you all know me as a Reformed guy. I do not endorse his view of providence or foreknowledge, and so Dr. Heiser would also probably just find me to be a lunkhead, but I think his work on the supernatural worldview of the Bible is terrific, and this is one of the main topics of that. So, all credit to him for this content. Okay, so the Incarnation in the Old Testament. Going back to the premise here. It's a really strange thing to think about, right? Because we think of the Old Testament as being Unitarian, monotheistic. There's, the Shema prayer here that we see. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. This is something that would have been said at daily prayers for the Jews. In the morning when they wake up, in the morning when I rise, we would say the Shema. The writers in the New Testament would have prayed this prayer thousands of times. Thousands of times in their life, tens of thousands of times in their life. And so this here is really one of the primary creedal statements of the Jewish people. Monotheism, which of course, we are Trinitarian monotheists as Christians, but this idea of the Lord being one is very important. So how is it that, we've got these same authors who are saying the Shema over and over and over again? They are willing then to say on one, probably got up in the morning and said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, etc. And then get up and have their amanuensis pick up a pen or their scribe pick up a pen and write, In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And somehow this was okay. It didn't really trouble them a lot to do both of those things at the same time. So the question, Dr. Heiser puts this question out there, how is it that a first century Jew, so committed to monotheism that he or she would choose death rather than worship a Roman emperor or a Roman god, could embrace Jesus of Nazareth as God in the flesh alongside the God of Israel? This is a very important question, because we have these same people who will not bow the knee to the emperor. They will not pinch the incense and put it on the altar and say, Kaiser Kurios, Caesar is Lord. They will not worship Roman gods. They will not worship the deified Roman emperor. And yet somehow they have no problem worshiping a carpenter the son of a carpenter from Nazareth? Are they being consistent? And the answer here, as it turns out, is yes. Because Jews had a belief in two powers in heaven, who were both holy and both Yahweh, prior to the writing of the New Testament, the difficulty for the Jews was not the idea that there is this second power in a Godhead of Yahweh. It was that this human being in front of them, Jesus of Nazareth, was that second power. So the distinction here is not that they had trouble with, say, what would eventually become the Trinity, or the idea that Yahweh could be, God could be found in embodied form or in a second person. These were not strange concepts to them. They did actually end up getting denounced as heresy in the 2nd century. We'll come back to that by the Jews, but they did not have a problem with that theological concept. The real rub was the people saying that this person, Jesus of Nazareth, was that second power. So I want to explore this a little bit. What does it mean that they believed in the idea of two powers in heaven? And there's this other book by a man named Alan Siegel, a Jewish writer himself. He wrote a whole book called Two Powers in Heaven, and how it interacted with where the doctrine came from, and then how that became heretical. And in his introduction, he's quoted saying the idea of the second power was not considered heretical in Judaism until the 2nd century CE. You may or may not know, CE is the way that Jewish writers, at a minimum, you'll probably see this in Muslim writers as well, but CE, Common Era, this is how they designate the difference between BC and AD. So, just a very quick thing you may know. So BC, before Christ, AD, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. So these eras, BC and AD that we have, this is centered around the life of Jesus. Our dating system is centered around the life of Jesus. Of course, the Jews do not want to center all of history around Jesus, and so they have CE or BCE. So that's where that comes from. So the 2nd century BC, that's going to be the 100s AD. And the second power belief was around, and it only became a heresy in the 100s AD. And you just got to wonder, what might have been taking place around that time that may have prompted the Jewish leaders to want to revisit the idea of two powers in heaven and decide to make that heretical. It's not really hard to imagine what that was. So let's get into this. What was the belief that had been around for so long that became inconvenient when the Christians were around? So, what we see is that God and the angel of the Lord are referenced interchangeably, showing the equality of the persons. The angel shows up in the Old Testament in many places as God's alter ego. This is not every time you hear about angels in the Old Testament, it's not always Jesus. Every time it talks about an angel singular, it's not Jesus. There are times when we see the equality of Yahweh and the angel of the Lord, and they appear in more than one time. They appear in the same scene as distinct persons, and yet they seem to be interchangeable. It's this very kind of strange dance that we will see throughout some of these texts. So I want to go over these texts with you and show you what I mean here. And this, of course, foreshadows then Jesus in the Incarnation. So we're going to start with a warm-up, which is Genesis 22. So the scene right here, this is the scene of the offering of Isaac. So we have Genesis 22 at the beginning. So the opening of this story. Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied, here I am. Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, then go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will show you. There's a lot to unpack in this passage. I think this passage still remains perhaps the most difficult theological passage in the entire Bible, in my personal opinion. not these two verses, but the whole story of Isaac. But we're not going to distract ourselves with that theological story. We're looking here at the roles of the characters. So you get a little bit later, Genesis 22:12. Remember, so Abraham's got the knife drawn. He's about to go and sacrifice Isaac, and then all of a sudden we hear, "Don't lay a hand on the boy." The angel said, "Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son." Okay, I want to stop here and say, can you see it? Can you see the two powers thing? It's not just that there's God and there's the angel, but where do we see this interchangeability show up? So, and that's going to be in this second verse here. So we have God is the one who's testing Abraham's faith. Okay. Then the angel shows up. It says, "Don't lay a hand on the boy. Do not hurt him, for now I know that you truly fear God." Okay, and the angel says you fear God. Fine. But he's referring to God in the third person. So the angel is saying, "You fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son." All right, so that's interesting there. God's the one that's testing Abraham's faith. The angel says, "I know you fear God, but you haven't withheld from me your son." Okay. So we're just going to leave that bookmark there, that tension. All right. Let's go see Exodus 3, the burning bush. One day Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock far into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire in the middle of the bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. "This is amazing," Moses said to himself. "Why isn't the bush burning up? I must go see it." When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush. "Moses, Moses." "Here I am," Moses replied. "Do not come any closer," the Lord warned. "Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob." When Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. All right, let's play the game. Do you see it? Where do we see this tension, this separateness, yet equality between Yahweh and the angel of the Lord? I invite you to pause the video if you want to look for it yourself. But here's where we see it. So Moses is tending his flock. Then the angel of the Lord appears to him. So that's what it says. That's, in this icon here. In the blazing fire. From the middle of the bush. I should have highlighted that too. In the fire from the middle of the bush is who? The angel of the Lord. Okay. Moses stares, saying, "It's amazing." I said, "Point it up." When the Lord saw Moses come and take a closer look, God called to him from where? He called to him from the middle of the bush. Hold on, rewind 2 sentences. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blaze of fire from the middle of the bush. Okay, so now God is calling. It was the angel, but then it was God. And he starts saying, "Moses, here I am, take off your sandals. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." And Moses was afraid to look at God. Okay. But who appeared to him in the middle of the bush? The angel of the Lord did. But then immediately, so here's your question. Are there two characters, or are there one? And it honestly doesn't matter, because either one of them goes to this point. If there's one, you can describe that one as either the angel or Yahweh, completely interchangeably. If there's two, well, you got two, and they appear to be equals. You can say the angel is in the middle of the bush, but God is calling to him from the middle of the bush. So maybe God was there too, but then the angel of the Lord is the one that Moses notices. So it's not entirely clear. Again, let's hold this one here. It gets better. Now we have Jacob's blessing of Joseph towards the end of Genesis 48. So remember, Jacob believes that Joseph was murdered. Joseph ends up in Egypt. He ends up second in command in Egypt. There's a famine, but Joseph stored up a bunch of grain. Joseph's family then comes to Egypt at his behest to be saved from the famine. And Jacob finally gets to see his son, whom he thought was dead, and he gives a blessing. "May the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked faithfully, God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, The angel who has delivered me from all harm, may he bless these boys. May they be called by my name and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they increase greatly on the earth. This one's not that hard to see, but you can see it right there. May the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked faithfully, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has delivered me from all harm, may he, singular, bless these boys. And who is the immediate noun prior? The angel. May the God, the angel, may singular he bless these boys. Jacob's blessing contains the idea of sort of the unity yet separateness of the angel of the Lord and Yahweh. Alright. It's like, you show one text, okay. You show another text, that might be a coincidence. Once is an anomaly, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a pattern. And we're not even done here. Judges chapter 2. The angel of the Lord appears in Judges chapter 2. Remember, Exodus 20, verse 2, the first commandment. The Decalogue opens with, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall not have any gods before me. That's commandment number 1. But who's speaking? You got the cloud on Sinai speaking. This is Yahweh. This is Yahweh, this is peak Yahweh right now from Sinai, given the law. Okay? So who brought them out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery? Yahweh did. The pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night. Alright, Judges chapter 2. Now the angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim, and he said, I brought you up from the land of Egypt and brought you to the land that I swore to give your fathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you. You shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. What is this you have done? So now I say, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall become thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be snares. As soon as the angel of the Lord spoke these words to the people of Israel, the people lifted up their voices and wept. And that is why they called the name of that place Bochim, and they sacrificed there to the Lord. Alright, so what do we see here? We see it again. Like I said, peak Yahweh, I brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. This is in the Decalogue, man. No other gods before me. And then the angel of the Lord just casually walks in and judges and says, I brought you up from Egypt. I swore to give this land to your fathers. I said, I won't break my covenant with you. You have not obeyed my voice. Wow. Okay. But like, Ryan, isn't this just an angel speaking as a messenger of God? Did the biblical writer just leave off the bit there where it's like, thus says the Lord, or whatever? It's like, well, I mean, he could have left off his Chili's order that night too. Like, you have as much evidence for that as you have, for anything that possibly was left out. But you can see this develop even further when you look later in Judges, and you can see that there's really not a way to weasel out of this one. Maybe you can weasel your way out here by inventing something that's not there. But let's take a look further. Let's read through this next passage very carefully. There's a big scene here where Yahweh and the angel of the Lord have a lot of lines and a lot of interplay. So the call of Gideon in Judges. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon was beating up the wheat and wine press to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor. And Gideon said to him, Please, my Lord, the Lord is with us. Why has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian. And the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours and save Israel from the land of Midian. Do I not send you? And he said to him, Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh. I am the least in my father's house. And the Lord said to him, But I will be with you. You shall strike the Midianites as one man. And he said to him, Now I have found favor in your eyes, and show me a sign that it is you who speak. Please do not depart from me here until I come to you and bring out my present and set it before you. And he said, I will stay till you return. A lot of pronouns, a lot of keys in here. Well, let's break this down. Let's read this very carefully. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth, the oak tree at Ophrah. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him, to Gideon, and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." Okay, so who appears? Angel of the Lord appears. We see angel of the Lord appeared to him under the oak tree, and the angel appeared to him and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." So now we have the angel referring to Yahweh as a separate person, and the angel is the one who's in the scene right now, speaking with Gideon, right? No controversy, not a trick question. Okay, so the angel of the Lord is the one speaking, and then Gideon says, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us," if Yahweh is with us, I mean, you and me are here, but then, there's Yahweh up there. If the Lord's with us, why is all this happening? Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? Now the Lord has forsaken us and given us to the hand of Midian. And the Lord turned to him and said, wait, who turned? Who appeared to Gideon? Again, here's a question. Is there one of them? Is there two of them? Either case, you end up with this unity and division thing. Did Yahweh enter the scene and then turn to him? And again, turn to him. Do spirits or unseen things turn? What does that mean, turned to him? One would think that you would need to be able to turn in order for it to be described as turning. So, is the Lord turning to him just referring to the angel who's already there? In that case, the angel can be identified as Yahweh, which is the unity. But at the same time, there's a separation. The Lord is with you. Maybe it's the royal we. Okay, but then again, the angel is now embodied, it would seem, because the angel can turn and appear to Gideon in a visible way. And again, no one can see God and live. No one has seen God. That's, John chapter 1. But we see manifestations of God. I need to be careful with that. But I think you know what I mean. I'm not trying to go to some kind of Sabellian modalist idea that there's one person and three masks, if you will. It's the physical presence of God, if we want to make sure that we're trying to be as proper as we can. So, again, there's either one or two persons here, but they're both identified as God. Okay, so now if I found favor in your eyes, show me again the sign that it is you who speak with me. Okay. Do not leave until I bring out my present. And he said, whoever he is, I will stay till you return. Who is staying? Is it the angel? Is it Yahweh? If I found favor in your eyes, whose favor was he in? The Lord is with you. And then he says, I will stay till you return. Presumably this is the angel, right? Gideon went inside, prepared a young goat, put the meat in the basket and its broth, brought it out, and offered them to him under the terebinth, under the oak tree. Who was under the terebinth? The angel was. The sacrifice is being offered, the offering is being given under the terebinth. That's where the angel was. And the angel of God said, okay, now the angel's talking again. So, is there one person talking or are there two people talking? And it honestly doesn't matter for the theology of the two powers, because they're either equal, because it is the simultaneous, it's the Godhead idea. It's the separateness yet unity. The angel of God said to him, take the meat and unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth. And Gideon did so. And the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread. The angel of the Lord disappeared. Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord. He exclaimed, alas, sovereign Lord, I've seen the angel of the Lord face to face. But the Lord said to him, peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die. Time out. We are reading this carefully, right? This is the kind of thing that you can just read right through. Okay, the angel said to him, then the angel of the Lord, what did the angel of the Lord do? The angel of the Lord disappeared. And then Gideon's like, I've seen the Lord face to face, so he's presuming he's going to die. But the Lord said to him, peace, do not be afraid, you are not going to die. The angel's not there anymore. The angel disappeared. Did the angel just show back up and say, oh no, never mind, you're not going to die? And it appears here that Yahweh, there were two presences there, and Yahweh never left the sea, even though the angel did. it's just so cool, like how this is shown up. So again, like this is, and Gideon believes that he has seen Yahweh when he's seen the angel. So this separateness yet equality is coming out here. So Yahweh is still there. The angel appears, refers to Yahweh separately, speaks on his behalf, but then the text identifies the angel as the Lord. And then the angel disappears, but Yahweh's still there. We've got two powers in their separateness as well as their unity. They share in the nature and being of God, but they are two separate persons, just like we say theologically with the Trinity. So we see that the angel of the Lord and God himself are separate yet distinct, yet they seem to be simultaneously interchangeable. I just had to add here, it's almost like something else we know of. This is exactly the description of the Incarnation. We talk about this with the Trinity. We didn't just make it up one day and say, I said this last time, but the New Testament writers didn't come in here and say, we should make God a Trinity. Yeah, that would make us unique. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You're introducing something that appears by all philosophy and understanding to be a complete contradiction. You're not going to just make it up. There's much, much better things to make up if you don't make it up. So we are seeing the revelation of the Godhead in the Old Testament texts when we read them carefully. I bet you're going to be real careful now every time you see the angel of the Lord, like look around for these. So we see the angel of the Lord one more time, or it's not the only other time, but another interesting time. Exodus 23. So see, this is Yahweh speaking now. See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him. Listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. Now this looks really like there's a separation. I, Yahweh, am sending an angel ahead of you. That I think we understand pretty well. Okay, God is the overlord of the angels. This is one of God's deputies that's going out there and is going to lead the people. It is a little interesting. This angel appears to be special because my name is in him. He will not forgive your rebellion. Don't rebel against him. You can look at that and say, oh my gosh, he's the power to forgive. It's like, well, I don't know. I wouldn't drive that too far. I don't think we've got any revelation here directly, clearly, that this angel is equal with Yahweh. We do have this curious phrase, my name is in it. So the name, the idea of the name, appears a few other times in the Old Testament. Here's a few of them. So Psalm chapter 20, forgive my children in the background. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob set you securely on high. So again, we have this fork. Do we have two different persons or one person? If we have two, that the name and the Lord are different, we nonetheless have, through Hebrew parallelism, the equality of them. It's a Yahweh and a Yahweh like equal. If they're the same, if the name just means the Lord, and the Lord just means the name, well now, the name sort of stands in for God himself. And we have to read this carefully enough to know that when we say the name of the God of Jacob, do you think that the psalmist meant, when the Lord answer you in the day of trouble, may the four consonants and the sounds that represent them set you securely on high? None of us actually read it that way. Let's be honest. We didn't read it as like a magical incantation or a set of sounds or a set of letters. We read this as the God of Jacob. May the God of Jacob set you securely on high. The name was a way of referring specially to the God of Jacob. So we can go later in that same psalm and we see some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in what? The name of the Lord our God. Now what is this passage saying? Again, is the passage saying that if you want to defeat chariots and horses, then shout Yahweh? Or hold up a placard with the name, that it's a magic spell that you can cast? Again, none of us read it that way. We trust in the name of the Lord our God. We trust in Yahweh. That's what it means. But the text says we trust in the name of the Lord our God. So the name and God, we understand that these are trying to say the same thing. They're synonymous. This is the part of Hebrew poetry. If you're not following me this far, it's going to get pretty clear. So we have 2 Samuel 6, where the name starts to get associated literally with the presence of God. David arose and went to the people who were with him at Valley Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the name, the very name of the Lord of hosts, who is enthroned above the cherubim. Why is this? That's where the very presence of God was in the tabernacle in the temple. The Shekinah fills, the high priest goes in for the Day of Atonement. Where is God met? God is met at the ark. That is where the very presence of Yahweh. This is his throne or his footstool. This is the place from which God dwells with his people. It's called by the name, the very name of the Lord of hosts, who's enthroned above the cherubim. Get what does it mean to be enthroned above the cherubim? There were cherubim on the ark. That's what it means. So the name is referring to the very presence of God. And if there's any doubt left, when you go to Deuteronomy 12, Yahweh is speaking to the Israelites. You shall seek the place that the Lord your God will choose out of all of your tribes as his habitation to put his name there. Then you get to verse 11. You shall bring everything that I command you to the place that the Lord your God will choose as a what? Dwelling. Okay? It doesn't stop there. For his name. The name refers to the very presence of God there at the ark in the tabernacle. It's God dwelling with his people, which takes us right back to, see, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. My very presence is in him. My being is in him. I am in him. The separateness, I am sending an angel, and yet the unity. My name dwells in him. So this is what we see with the angel of the Lord. We have this separateness and yet unity at the same time, the two powers in heaven. And like I said, it just, once it became inconvenient to believe the two powers in heaven, when Christianity was on the rise, and there was a claim, basically, that Jesus was the second power that they all knew from the Old Testament, that they had to call it heretical. So, alright, there's now a finale. We're going to do one other one here. This is a little off to the side. It's not exactly about the angel of the Lord, but nonetheless, there is another identification with two powers in divinity in the Old Testament. We'll talk about the cloud rider. So, I decided to do this in Jeopardy format. Time for today's Daily Double. In the ancient Near East, he was known as the storm god who rode on the clouds. Who might this be? Who is Baal? Baal. The sculpture's name here is Baal with a thunderbolt, dated to 1500 BC. The worship of this god was extremely popular in the ancient Near East. We know it lasted for centuries. Remember Elijah, the prophets of Baal? That comes 700, 800 years later than this sculpture. You can almost kind of make out here the thunderbolt that Baal is holding right there. You can see, he's standing on something. Not quite sure what that is, but if you told me it was a cloud, I wouldn't argue with you. But in at least 14 places in the Baal texts, we'll bring it back here, he is referred to with the title, the rider of the clouds. This is appropriate. He's the storm god. So, of course, he's riding on the clouds. Credit to a master's thesis I found that tabulated all of this. So, Baal is very popular. Really powerful god. He's the cloud rider. Everybody knows who the cloud rider is. Right? Right? We know who the cloud rider is. Baal! He's the cloud rider. Well, let's take a look. Psalm 68, 32 through 33. Sing to God, O kingdoms of the earth. Sing praises to the Lord. Selah. O rider in the heavens, the ancient of heavens. Listen, he sends out his voice, his mighty voice. Rider in the heavens, sing to God from the Psalms. Did we include a psalm of Baal worship in the middle of the Psalms? I wouldn't think so. Isaiah 19, an oracle concerning Egypt. See, the Lord is, what's he doing? riding on a swift cloud, and comes to Egypt. The idols of Egypt will tremble at his presence, and the heart of the Egyptians will melt within them. The Lord is riding on a swift cloud, and the idols are trembling. Who's supposed to be the cloud rider? Who's trembling? Because the one who's actually riding on the clouds? It's very interesting. Psalm 104. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord, my God, you are very great. You are clothed with honor and majesty, wrapped in light as with a garment. You stretch out the heavens like a tent. You set the beams of your chambers on the waters. You make what? The clouds your chariot. You ride on the wings of the wind. So here we have Yahweh being identified as the cloud rider. Alright? Well, so this is being Yahweh's just a copy of Baal. We knew it the whole time. This is just ancient Near Eastern religion where the Jews are appropriating it. This is all history religions, mumbo-jumbo stuff, and everybody was just believing it. The Jewish God was a pagan God. We knew that the whole time. Yeah, this is Jesus' reaction to you right now, if that's what you're thinking. This is commentary. This is polemic. This is evoking the imagery of the other gods, is saying, who's the real cloud rider? Who's the real God? You all know how powerful Baal is. And what I'm telling you is that the real God is Yahweh. This is just like when Paul went to the Athenians and he was quoting Greek philosophy or Greek mythology to them to try and get them to understand, in him we live and move and have our being, which is, I believe that was a quote about Zeus. He's using that to try and speak to them in ways that they understand, to say, no, not that Yahweh is Zeus, but Yahweh is greater than Zeus. This is who the real cloud rider is. So that's what this is about. So God the Father, right? That's the real cloud rider, right? It's true, everywhere except in one place. And that one place is in Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7, verse 9, as I watched, thrones were set in place. And the Ancient One, the Ancient of Days, took his throne. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames, and his wheels were burning fire. And then 2 verses later, and as I watched in the visions, I saw one like a human being coming with the clouds of heaven. So now we've got a cloud rider again, but wait. The Ancient of Days is already up there on his throne. The Ancient One. Who's the one riding on the clouds? The one like a human being. And if there's any doubt, he came to the Ancient One and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and kingship to all the peoples, nations, and languages, so that they would all serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that shall not pass away, and his kingship is one that shall never be destroyed. Whose? The human being who came on the clouds of heaven, just like the cloud rider. Somehow in this scene, the one like the human being, we've got 2 divine figures, the Ancient One, but then the one like the human being is also identified using the Baal epithet, the cloud rider. And he has dominion, an everlasting dominion, in a kingdom that won't pass away and never be destroyed. So now we've got the vision of Daniel. There's 2 powers, one of them human and divine. He's a human cloud rider. A human being, so he's a human. He's a cloud rider like Baal, which is the same identification earlier in the Old Testament for Yahweh. A human and divine figure at the same time. And I think you all know this at this point, but in case you don't, when Jesus was asked before the high priest, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" Jesus said, "I am. You will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven." He's quoting that Daniel 7 passage about himself. That Daniel 7 passage that what? Was the divine one like a human being with the cloud rider epithet that we knew was the same as Yahweh. It was a divine title, but he was a human being and he was given all authority. Jesus brings that as a label for himself. So what's the conclusion here? The Old Testament attests to a Godhead. There's 2 persons sharing the same being. The Old Testament also previews the Incarnation in Daniel 7, a human being that's identified as deity. And this is the title that Jesus ultimately applies to himself. And we have the fullness of the revelation of the Incarnation. So there you go. There's the description of the 2 powers in heaven and how that plays out through the Old Testament. And I hope that helps you understand that the Christians didn't just make up the idea of a Godhead. It has always been there since the early chapters of Genesis. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.